Once you defeated the Elder in Valheim, you progress from Bronze to Iron Age. So here's a short guide on everything you need to know about iron, the tools and weapons you can craft with it, and the swamp, its resources and nasty creatures. If you're only interested in one of the topics, you can skip forward with the video chapters. Before you start into the Iron Age, you should prepare a few things that will make your life in the swamp a bit easier. First of all, and surely the most important part, is to make poison resistance meat. It will reduce the effect of poison damage by 75% on a duration of 10 minutes. You can of course enter the swamp without this meat, but the poison effect of attacking draugrs and blobs will deal massive damage to you. So better have some poison resistance meat in your inventory. To craft it, you need a cauldron and a fermenter, and honey, thistles, necktails and coal as ingredients. If you want to know more about making meat, check out the more detailed guide I made on it. The other things you should have before starting your swamp journey is a boat and resources for a portal. The boat makes it easier to find a swamp biome on your map, as they are mostly located along the shoreline. The portal will help you to travel faster between the swamp and your base to repair tools and weapons. This way you won't have to build another upgraded workbench or forge. And last but not least, you should have enough resources in your inventory or in the storage of your boat to build a small shelter, a workbench and the second portal. So a full stack of wood, 20 fine wood, 2 surtling cores, 10 Grey Dwarf eyes and 6 poison resistance meat should be enough to get started. In addition to this, be sure to have the swamp key that you receive after killing the Elder and the hoe with which you can level a path through the swamp. That will make it much easier to move, especially when you want to use a cart. Otherwise, you are permanently wading or swimming through water. It's not always working, but on knee-high water it works perfectly fine. To find one or more of the swamp biomes on your map, you should sail along the shoreline of the island you started on. Sooner or later you will see bare trees in the distance surrounded by darkness and green mist. That's the swamp, the place you're looking for. You might also recognize fire gazers that are surrounded by burning creatures, the so-called surtlings, and green flames that mark the location of sunken crypts. And that's where the swamp key comes into play, cause you need it to open the crypts. These dark and gloomy dungeons can be compared with the burial chambers of the Black Forest, but instead of skeletons and ghosts, you will find draugrs and blobs in there. They also spawn from body piles, so be sure to destroy them to clean the crypt, otherwise draugrs will spawn again and again. The crypts have multiple rooms that are separated by muddy scrap piles. When you remove them with your pickaxe, you will receive scrap iron, leather scrap and withered bones. The scrap iron needs to be processed in the smelter to receive iron bars that you can use to craft tools and weapons. Withered bones are needed to summon the boss of the swamp called Bonemass. 10 of these bones are enough, so don't load yourself too much with them. Besides scrap iron and bones, you can also find different resources in chests inside the crypts, such as iron and poison arrows, rubies, coins and amber that can be sold at the trader, and chains, entrails and ancient bark. Be sure to take at least 4 of the chains with you, as you need them to upgrade your forge. You also need the entrails that are dropped by draugrs to craft sausages, and the ancient bark that is needed to craft different weapons like the iron sledge or the draugr fang. And that leads me to the tools, weapons and buildings you can craft with iron. Besides the usual weapons like spear, shield, sword and a complete new armor, you have new weapons like the battle axe, the mace and the sledge. Fans of axe fighting should definitely check out the battle axe, as it deals massive slash damage, even though it slows down your movement speed. The iron mace was my personal weapon of choice during the Iron Age, as it deals good damage but is still fast and you can combine it with a shield. And then there's the huntsman bow with a higher damage and durability than the former ones, especially when combined with poison, fire or iron head arrows. But the weapon you should definitely craft, especially before getting into the boss fight with Bonemass, is the iron sledge. It is a huge hammer that will slow down your attack speed massively, but once it slams on the ground, it deals massive damage to every enemy around. To craft it, you need a draugr elite trophy, ancient bark, iron and emir flesh that you can only buy at the trader. But even though it needs a lot of resources, I would highly recommend to craft it. In addition to the tools and weapons, there are also new building options available once you collected your first iron bar. You can now upgrade your forge with a tool rack and an anvil, and build the iron gate, the reinforced chest, and wood iron beams and poles. Also, you can build the stone cutter now that allows you to build walls, floors, stairs and pillars with stone instead of only wood. So the Iron Age comes with a lot more changes than it looks like. Now let me tell you a few things about the other resources and creatures you can find in the swamp. I told you about the ancient bark already that you need to craft some weapons, but also for the bonfire and the longship. It can be found in chests inside the crypts, but can also be collected by felling ancient trees that you can find all over the swamp. In addition to the ancient trees, you might recognize trees with green glowing sacs all over them. This green stuff is called gug and needs to be collected to craft and upgrade the Draugr Fang bow later on. Unfortunately, you can't destroy it with arrows. You have to build stairs or platforms up at the trees to reach the sack with your pickaxe. Finding one on ground level is a coincidence, so better have some wood in your inventory if you go out to collect gug. To craft and fully upgrade the Draugr Fang, you need 24 gug in sum. Other resources that can be found in the swamp are thistles that you already know from the Black Forest and that are needed to craft sausages, and turnip seeds. Turnip seeds can be planted just like carrot seeds and will grow turnips. They are needed to make turnip soup that gives you a pretty high health and stamina boost. If you want to know more about farming, be sure to check out my other guide as well. Creatures that can be found in the swamp are draugrs, blobs, surtlings and skeletons. Draugrs are undead that drop valuable entrails and trophies and will also attack your base in an event called A Foul Smell from the Swamp. Surtlings are flame creatures that throw fireballs at you and drop coal and surtling cores. So besides the burial chambers of the Black Forest, they are a good source for surtling cores. And they will also attack your base in an event starting with "There's a smell of sulfur in the air." Skeletons are the same as always, only with a bit more health, and blobs are green slime monsters that will deal massive poison damage to you and drop ooze that is required to craft poison arrows. Last but not least, let me give you a few tips on defeating the boss of the swamp, Bonemass. You can find his location as usual by interacting with one of the rune stones that can be found in the sunken crypts. He can be summoned with 10 withered bones as already mentioned, and looks like the big brother of the blobs that has eaten all of his siblings. Poison resistance and healing meat should be in your inventory when getting into the fight, cause he will puke waves of poisonous ooze that deal massive damage to everyone around him. Bonemass is weak to blunt damage, so this is where the aforementioned iron sledge and the iron mace come into play. Also, be sure to craft an iron shield to block his swipe attacks. If you play as a group, one person can climb up on the large skull and attack him, so he will be focused on this player while everyone else in the team can attack Bonemass from behind. Once he is defeated, you will receive the usual trophy for the altar and the wishbone. It is needed to send silver deposits in the mountains biome, but that's the topic of the next guide. And that's it for today. I hope this video helps you to progress from bronze to iron and successfully fight Bonemass. If it did, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel to stay tuned. Until then, thanks for watching, I am the Catwoman and you are awesome.